The Trump Justice Department has now secured a new indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James, a top law enforcement official in New York State. Trump had personally marked her as a target or political enemy for this very indictment, which is now reality. She previously took his company to court in a civil case, a type of enforcement that doesn't carry a possible criminal charge or jail time. And in that civil case, it was about Trump's business practices, one of the things that earned his ire. The new James indictment comes, of course, right after the DOJ's controversial indictment of Trump critic James Comey. Both cases do begin with the legally uphill battle of the president's call for these very charges. That could even doom them if judges find it to be an illegal selective prosecution. In another unusual twist, both are being brought in Virginia by the exact same newly installed Trump loyalist, attorney Lindsay Halligan. She replaced the Trump prosecutor there, who was not bringing either of these cases, a very noticeable gap, and we'll get into that tonight. She could not get any other lawyer to join her unusual indictment against Comey, and today she was back presenting this case to the grand jury alone again. Now, this new case is unusual. It effectively tries to drum up a mortgage fraud case against James for one of her homes. Legal experts also note that, like Comey, the case is saddled with this unusual cloud from Trump's incriminating call to indict these very people he views as foes. We've highlighted the names, as you can now see, 2 of the 3 indicted. Halligan has done that just within weeks of this September 20th post. And a word about this post. It is damning for Trump. It admits the plot. And it would at least complicate the legal case, the standing of whether judges find it to be valid before any such indictments were filed. In other words, what you see on your screen, what went across the whole internet, is actually against Donald Trump's interest to have his enemies list be pursued. And in his mind, effectively pursued would mean that it passes those early hurdles I'm mentioning, that it doesn't look suspicious to a judge. So it was against his interest that this post went public in the first place. And there's new reporting today suggesting he knew it looked bad and didn't want this suspicious prosecution demand to his Attorney General Pam Bondi to go public. And yet, the reason we know about it, if you're saying, okay, it wasn't supposed to be public, he didn't want it to be public, but it was, how did that happen? Which is very relevant to the news tonight. Well, Donald Trump made a major blunder, a kind of an IT or tech blunder, because he took what was meant to be a written secret order for AG Pam Bondi, and we're talking about Watergate-level evidence here, and he accidentally put it on the internet. Literally. That is what he did, according to sources who spoke to Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal, which broke this story just today, and it further undercuts the new case against James tonight, because again, it suggests this is some kind of baseless vendetta rather than prosecutors finding the crime. Here's that journal piece. They report Trump actually, quote, meant to send a private message to Bondi urging her to prosecute Comey and those other targets. This is the journal reporting. Those targets, as you know tonight, include the now indicted Letitia James. So, plain English, Trump was trying to secretly order Bondi to do these kind of indictments. And even Donald Trump, with whatever he thinks he can get away with, knows that even right now, as some of the courts let him do certain things, admitting that you have an improper enemies list or that these cases are going nowhere, but for you demanding it, is bad for you, bad for those cases. So he tried to address her in private, which some people noted when the post first came out, it seemed odd, because as he would in a private meeting or message, this post online said, Pam, I've reviewed over 30, and he mentions all the references to the same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing's being done. What about Comey, Schiff, Letitia? Reference to James indicted today. They're all guilty as hell, he wrote, but nothing is going to be done. Trump was trying to message, as he calls her, Pam, in secret, but he was then surprised to learn it was public, the journal reports. Bondi also contacted the White House with major concerns about all this spilling out. That now public post is the kind of evidence that Comey's team says they will cite to have the whole case tossed. And that defense or argument will be available to James, who's speaking out about this. The DOJ clearly roiled by what is a publicly exposed, very possibly illegal effort by a president to call in and have opponents jailed, regardless of evidence, regardless of if his own aides already and old lawyers already in the DOJ said there was no case there, regardless of all of that. This type of approach, politicizing the FBI, abusing power, is what got Nixon ousted. And as a legal matter, what is happening tonight builds the basis to impeach a president. As for the enemies list that we are seeing here, 2 of those 3 in this post have already been swiftly indicted since late September. On these charges that are so flimsy, career prosecutors oppose them. And Trump's DOJ is using a range of criminal legal actions against what you see here. I'm going to show this to you in full because it's a lot. 6 of Trump's perceived foes, all facing major DOJ legal criminal powers, home searches, subpoenas, indictments. In the case of Mayor Baraka, an indictment that was so thin, the charges were quickly dropped. The case fell apart. But all of this is steamrolling these critics at this early stage. Indeed, one of the individuals you see on the upper right, the very first member of Congress indicted under what now looks like a streak, Congresswoman McIver, joins us later tonight, as does a former lawyer for President Trump, Ty Cobb. He's been speaking out about the legal dangers here. So in a way, the Nixonian enemies list is public. And Trump's demands also went public, even if by his own blunder, according to the Journal reporting. And his attorney general, or as he calls her, we've now learned, Pam in private. Remember, she vowed very recently under oath there would never be such an enemies list.
I'm questioning you right now about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
That's what she said under oath. Because Pam Bondi, like Donald Trump himself in that recent post, knows there is still a bridge too far. There are still things that'll get you in hot water. There are things that could get your law license revoked. There are things that sooner or later could be impeached or worse if our constitutional system holds. And yes, we all understand there are efforts to break it. But she said, quote, under oath, there'll never be an enemies list. Well, Attorney General Bondi, we have your enemies list. Your boss, who you apparently called the White House about, so concerned about his poor phone or tech habits, he leaked it on himself. And you and your team are doing his bidding. And we have to deal with what it means in this country when an enemies list is being pursued like this.